Hello guys and welcome back. In this video I want to talk about two different things. So the first thing is gonna be the cleanup of my Getup front and Getup back animation, looking like this and this. So these are the animations that I posted the raw data from last time, which I cleaned up inside Motion Builder. And I wanted to attach a few words to this because it actually causes quite a bit of a problem for me because I didn't take some stuff into account to begin with. So I'm going to save you guys the trouble in case you try to do the same. So aside from all the jittery corrections and all that stuff, one thing I accidentally did was to try to match pose this at the last frame, and that actually caused the beginning of the animation to rotate the character this way, so he was turned. And what that does when I get up is that he's gonna start in a turned rotation. So I actually had to go back in the first frame and make sure that he was turned again, and once I put down the first foot here, I had to turn him in the correct location so that he would end up in this third person idle frame animation pose. And talking about the idle frame animation pose, if we take a look at the position of the root relative to the pelvis here, then I really didn't take into account to begin with where that was starting and ending. Because if we take a look at this position here and take a look at the idle position, we can see that the ending position aligns up with the beginning position of this one. So that's something to take into account. And if you do that inside Motion Builder, for example, or whatever you use, with my animation, the way I got up, my hip was actually down here, and if I use that location to begin with, it's going to cause the character to slide forward to begin with. So I had to displace the hip to be sort of here or here, but it ended up actually this situation here right on top of the root, but it needs to be kind of here in order not to make the character initially slide forward. And that reposition of the character obviously caused a sliding of the foot, because that foot was positioned at a different location, more around here. So I had to alter almost all of the animation to get this look here. So that's a little bit of knowledge to take with me next time I do something like this, and I hope that by sharing this I'm gonna save you guys some trouble as well. Okay, so yeah, just post questions on my channel if you are interested in some more details on this, because this was really annoying to work with to begin with, because I didn't really think this through. So anyway, the second thing I want to talk about in this video is the setup for the climbing wall. As you may notice, the level is looking different, and I'm not having this this regular big chunk of wall. That's because I segmented everything now down to a climbing hole start. So the climbing holes and the wall section itself is actually now one actor. So this is actually the beginning section, the start section, and this one is rotated a little bit weird because right now the system is limited to this 27.55 angle, because that's the angle the Mocap was shot at. So I need to put that down so it ends up standing upright like this. So one thing I noticed when I started working with this was that it would it would end up being pretty annoying to try and align everything up on top of each other. So I had to come up with some sort of a snapping logic. So that's what I did here. So what I can do now is just drag it over approximately where it should be and say snap to bottom. And since I didn't put it close enough in this case here, I need to get a little bit closer here and just snap again. And that's going to cause this block here to position itself where it should be. So let's do this a few more times. And as you will see, once I click it and it snaps, it's gonna deselect itself. So in this case, I want to snap this block here to the left. So that works that way also. So I'm gonna snap this to the bottom, and I'm just copy pasting these. Snap this one to the bottom, and let's just make a section going upwards. And let's just make one more. And let's go one to the side, snap this one to the right. And what I'm going to do here is, because I have one called snap center, because the dyno is actually not jumping from this to this, it's actually jumping from this to in between. And that's just the way I did it. I am not gonna change the animation right now at this point. So what I can do instead is say, okay, the center of this one needs to snap to this one. So I can position it approximately here and say snap. That's gonna move it here. And from here on I can just, now that it's positioned correctly, I can just remove these. And that means when I am here, I can jump up to this one. So as you can hopefully see from this, it's allowing me to create a route pretty quickly, and after that populate with some climbing holes. Okay, seem to have a bug here. Ah, okay, no, that's not actually not a bug. It's just the way the animation is. I have to actually, in this case here, put this one here, so snap this one to the bottom. It needs to go this way. Actually need to get rid of that one. There's a few limitations to this system here right now. And as you can see, he's making a little twitch when I get onto the wall. That's because I'm working on some IK stuff, which is currently not set up correctly. So anyway, once we get up to this point here, we can make the jump up to this one, and gonna approximately land at the correct position. That's set up for making the climbing holes, the routes right now. So if I open up the climbing template, which has the tracing stuff here, it's all made in the construction script. So I have this construction script with a sequence of 5 pins, one top, bottom, right and left, and a center. And what this does is to say, if somebody set a checkbox in the snap bottom, it will go into this one and look for a snap point. And this is the direction to trace. So this one -1 means it's going to trace down. So it's going to look down for a sphere, and it's going to look down from this one. So this one is the bottom sphere. So if we open this one up, whoops, it's the bottom sphere. It's going to trace down a little bit to see if we can find something else. And here, inside this macro, it's just a macro. I collapsed everything to a macro. Takes this up and right. It's just a a value from 0 to 1, basically. It's going to take the actual rotation, meaning the climbing section here, to find that up vector and from the rotation, and add that together to find the end position of the trace. So it's getting the world position of the snap sphere, which in the example was the bottom sphere. I'm going to trace from that one in the direction given by these two values here. So in this case, when we're tracing down, it's not going to look to the right, it's only going to look down. And if I find anything, I'm going to find the hit component, which is hopefully, because I'm tracing at a trace channel called snap point, which all of these spheres have as a trace setting here. So set to block, everything else is set to ignore. It's going to find that sphere, and usually when you trace down, you will find the top sphere. So once I get that top sphere, I'm going to get the world location, and I'm going to subtract my own the location of the bottom sphere from that one here with my own actor location. So since the actor location is a bit offset with that, it's going to give me the correct position, and subtract that from the hit location to give me the new location. So that's going to put that, so I'm going to set my actor location to that new location. I hope that made sense. Okay, anyway, it's here if you want to take a look at how it's done. And that's going to say go out to this if it snapped or did not snap. So it comes out like this. And then I set it to false again, so it doesn't constantly snap. Because if I don't set this one to false again, it's gonna stick and I can't really move it afterwards. So that's all I do in these here. So a little bit about performance for this, because obviously once I make a huge climbing wall with this, it's gonna introduce a lot of unnecessary, let's call it that, climbing actors. So this is right now just used to block things out, or show how I want something to be moving. I have to figure out, I think, a better way, a better performing way to lay out a route. But since I eventually want to have stuff like, let's say I wanted this to be at a different angle. So for example, like this, doesn't have to be, the idea is it doesn't need to be lining up perfectly. So it doesn't have to be exactly lining up the bottom one here. The idea is it's gonna be allowed to be offset a little bit. And the same if I were to rotate this a little bit around this axis, it should still within certain limits be able to adjust itself to this. I forgot what I was trying to say. Anyway, yeah, so that's the general idea with this segmentation of stuff. So anyway, right now I just want to point out one nice detail I found out. I ended up figuring out that I could really use this, but it's still useful maybe in other scenarios. So if I select everything in here, and I have under my editor preferences under experimental, there's a setting called actor merging. If you check that one, it's still under experimental, of course, and it's 4.11.2. That means you can, under window, go in and find this called merge actors. You need to restart the editor if you do this, to get this one to show up. But what this does is to allow merging of all these actors into one static mesh, so it can merge all kinds of light mesh UVs, and you can change the pivot point. Let's just set that to 0. Try to merge materials and yeah, stuff like that. And you can decide where to put this. So it's going to create a new static mesh. Where did he go? What? Well, he's here, but I can't get him to show up now. That's weird. Oh. Something with the pivot. Okay, great. Okay, so anyway, so that's gonna create one static mesh, but it's gonna cause me to lose all my tracing points and stuff like that. So eventually I would need to recreate them, but it's still gonna be better than having, like, let's say 100 of these actors in the level, to have just one static mesh, and maybe one with all the volumes, which I can pretty easily create out of from this template here. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking right now, but I'm still considering my options with this, but I wanted to point this feature out because I think it's quite useful. Anyway, I think that's gonna wrap up this video for this time. I hope this was interesting and useful. I am gonna continue in some of the next videos with some of the work I'm doing on the IK, and hopefully I'm gonna be able to present some nice solution to this. Until then, thank you for watching and see you soon. Bye bye.